Hi, this is Michelle from Erie River, and that was our intro into the most exciting day of the year so far, and that is the release of With Blood and, oh my gosh, I lost my brain, With Blood and Ash and With Bone and Iron. These are our two dark fantasy books. They're our first dark fantasy books that are going to be releasing with Erie River. We've got a couple more coming up this year, but we're really excited about this one because it is a compilation of 14 novellas put over 2 books. So right now, if you haven't picked them up, do so. They are only 99 cents each, and they're on ebooks from Amazon, or if you want, you can buy the paperback, and we've got hardcover as well. And I believe someone actually has a copy of their paperback already, but mine have not arrived because Canada, which is very exciting to live in, but unfortunately the post from anything like that is lagging. But anyways, enough of that. Welcome to Erie River. We're really excited to have you. We've got 4 of our authors here this week, and then next week we have another 4. So this week we have Austin Shirey. We've got Rachel, and I'm going to mess up your last name, so I'm just going to say Rachel. We have T.M. Brown, and we have David Green, and they're all going to be coming on in just a short little bit. But first, I want to tell you just a little bit about Erie River. Erie River Publishing is an indie publishing house. So what that means is we're not one of the big guys. What our main thing that we do here is we publish the dark fiction categories. We do a lot of horror, dark fantasy, and dark speculative fiction. So we publish and promote indie authors from all around the world. So I think today we've got the US, Canada, and we've got England as well. So, and Ireland, I think. Yeah, pretty sure Ireland's in there. So it's going to be really exciting to see everybody. Right now going on, we have an Indiegogo campaign. So if you see some of the books that we have today and you would like to purchase them, you can get them actually through our Indiegogo campaign at a reduced cost. We have both of our collections as paperback. We have that through our Indiegogo campaign only at $30 Canadian plus some shipping. We also have stickers. You can buy some sticker packs, swag bags, and a book, a couple different book bundles. So lots of stuff available if you would like to support us. But on to the main event. Let's bring out our first author. I'm going to bring out Austin. He's just going to say hi. Are you ready? Yeah, we're doing it. Hi, how are you?
Hey, doing well. How about you?
Good. It's been a busy day, so I'm excited to sit down and relax and say hi.
Yeah.
Now, rumor on the street is, not necessarily just a rumor because I saw it, that you actually have one of the paperbacks.
I do. Just got this in the mail today.
Today? Perfect timing.
Like 15 minutes before this
goodness.
Went on.
It's almost like it was planned. It wasn't, but that's awesome. Yeah, no, that's a sexy looking book. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, no, it's really beautiful. It's really cool to hold
your story in there. What story? So you're in With Bone and Iron, which is we had to name one of them 1 and one of them 2. This is volume 2, but they can all be read at different times. None of the stories actually interconnect. They're all completely different world, completely different characters. And yours, what's your kind of story? What's the little
so mine is,
what is it?
Yeah, mine is called The Hound of Oaken, and it's basically about like a masterless knight that roams around hunting monsters, stuff like that, and he gets caught up in something that involves like a mystery, so he kind of does some detective work too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, it was it's a really exciting. We're going to get a little bit of you're going to read a bit of your story later on, right? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, nice seeing you. We're going to connect in a little bit, and yeah, we'll see you soon. I'm looking forward to that read.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right, next one up is Rachel. Are you ready? Yeah. Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
Where are you meeting us from?
I'm in England.
Yes. Well, it's nice to see you. It looks like it's a lot darker out there. You're
Yes.
5 hours ahead, so we're at 9:07 for you, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
It's 9, about bedtime.
All right, perfect. Now your book, your story, that's your story is in, which one is that in? Yes. So tell what is that one? What's yours is actually a part of a larger world that you're creating. So tell us a little bit about your story without giving too much of, and a little bit about the world itself as well.
Okay. So my story is set in a world where demons have overrun the place and humans are a dying breed.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got witches and rogues, which are the only people that can access magic, and they are slowly killing off the demon hordes. But in Sith, the Fire Witch, they're kind of nomadic and they need to come together and organize to be able to make more of a dent. Yeah.
No, it's a really interesting premise, and I'm excited to see how this ties into your other worlds and other stories, but this story in particular is very interesting. So I'm excited to see what little snippet you decided to share with everyone, and I hope that everyone kind of like whets their appetite, because this is a really interesting world that you created. So I'm looking forward to it. So we will see you in a little bit when we bring you up, and then you can start reading.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Okay, the next one is T.M. Brown. His story is up in the, it's with Blood and Ash. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing well.
Good. Nice to see you. You're down in the States somewhere, right?
Yes, yeah, Colorado. So it's beautiful, sunny Colorado.
Oh, that's excellent. It's always good. We're finally getting some of the snow going away here.
Yep. Yeah, it's clinging to the shadows. But it's about finished off here too. So.
Oh, that's perfect. So tell us a little bit about the world that you created and the story that you're going to be sharing with us today.
Sure. So my world's kind of set in a little bit of a high fantasy medieval setting, and it's one that I've kind of hopped into and out of for several different stories. And this one, kind of at the novelette length, is set there as well. So I've written a lot of things kind of on the fringes of the Sunspring Empire, and then this one takes you right into the very center of it. So it's a pretty fun story. Lots of blood and swords and magic.
Perfect. So this one is actually part of, again, another larger world that you've already kind of established, right?
Yes, yeah. So I'm kind of building it as I go. A little bit of a story at a time. But this one thus far is completely distinct from everything else I've done, but it fits in the broader world.
Very cool. Well, it's always exciting when you could do something like that with a story and kind of just develop it and bring it back to other places. So that's pretty neat. I'm excited to see what you are going to be reading with us soon.
All right. I'm excited to do it.
Yeah. All right. So, and last but never least is Mr. David Green. Are you ready? Yes. Yawn anyways. There you go. And you are visiting us today from Ireland, correct?
I am. I'm still there.
Still there.
Still clinging to the West Coast, as long as my fingernails digging into the cliffs.
Yeah. Well, the weather's fantastic, so you should.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you say it was always raining the other day?
Yeah, it's pretty much like it's either windy or raining, but it's always grey. So, and apart from 2 days a year when they take all the photographs and send them to tourists and say, look how beautiful Ireland is. And all the tourists are like, wow, it's beautiful, let's go there. And it's like they turn up. It's great. I used to work in an outdoor store for a little while. And we used to do amazing business on raincoats and storm coats and all this kind of stuff. Because people would turn up in shorts and t-shirts in the middle of summer and it would be torrential rainpour. And we'd be like, yes.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Because I was planning on coming one day.
So,
and I wasn't going to bring a lot of rain gear, but now I'm going to have to.
Do so.
So your story, tell us a little bit about now. Is this a world that you created before, or was it like unique for this book?
No, yeah, it was unique for this. There is like some kind of similarities, I suppose, with something else that's coming out later on this year. But it was created just for this anthology called Master and Apprentice, and it's basically about someone who loses something very, very dear to them and the lengths that they would go to get that thing back. And there's only one person that can stop them, and that is their former apprentice. So that's it.
Exciting. Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, while you're here, we're gonna. I lost myself. Well, we've got a couple people. So I'm going to just say goodbye for right now, and we'll hop back on. We can. I'll call you for reading.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to say a shout out to everyone, because it looks like we're getting some comments from some of our readers. We've got, or like, yeah, I guess they could be readers too. We've got Michelle, who says, great intro. Same with Jennifer, cool. Nice intro from Eric. And then a hello, Rachel, so hi. And then, yes, Kim brought up my hat, which is one of the reasons I wanted to stop for a second, because I forgot. So if you are a fan of Erie River and you'd like to support us, there's lots of ways to do it. Commenting on stuff, comment, share, like. You don't even, we're an indie pub. We understand that not everybody is able to buy every single anthology, and we totally get that. So if you can just comment and share if it's something that you're excited about, if you do read something, remember to review it. Like, reviews on Amazon and Goodreads and BookBub are essential to get our names out there. But there's other ways to support us as well. We've got the Indiegogo campaign. You can buy our books, and we also have merchandise. So we've got two different sites right now. This is the Erie River Publishing hat that's on our Etsy. Etsy does have hats and beanies and t-shirts. We also have, oh, speaking of t-shirts, we have our this is our Erie River author t-shirt. We have Erie River Publishing shirts, as well as one that says drink, bleed, yeah, drink, eat, bleed, horror, with the same skull heart hybrid. My husband has that shirt. It looks really cool. Then we also have things where you can get some swag, where you can get things like bookmarks and postcards. And you can do that through our shop. So lots of different ways of supporting, lots of different ways. If you just really want to kind of support and just uplift us and get yourself a cool bookmark. Who doesn't need a bookmark, really? Yeah. And then here's Joel. I'm glad you brought up the hat comment, because I hadn't realized it was an Erie River hat. Yes, it is. It looks professional and everything. Now, these hats are embroidered, so it's actually pretty cool. And thank you, Michelle. She just downloaded Blood and Ash. Can't wait to dig in. Well, we can't wait to see what you say. We do not have ties yet, but maybe one day. I think I could make socks, but I didn't know if anyone would want socks. But we're all here not to talk about Erie River. We are here to hear about this book. So I'm going to bring Austin back first, and then Rachel, and then TM Brown, and then David, just so we know in the back who goes next. So Austin, I'm going to bring you on. Now I'm going to have you read. I'm just going to take myself from the, if I can figure out how. I always get stuck. And we will be good to go. Are you ready?
Okay. I'm ready. Let's do it. Had it been any other tavern in any other town, every eye in the place would have marked the Wilder Knight's heavy steps as he approached the bar. As it was, the Ill-at-ease was mostly empty, and the handful of customers spread about did not care about one lonesome, dark-skinned stranger. Nothing interesting ever happened here, not anymore. Straw covered the dirt floor, and a great blazing hearth in the center of the tavern painted everything in warm golden hues. The smell of roast pig and venison stew wafted out from the kitchen behind the bar. A gaunt serving girl with sad eyes and a fake smile made the rounds, giggling when a drunkard pawed at her. A group of farmhands around another table chuckled at something only they could hear. The Wilder Knight was a big man and tall, his face obscured by the hood of a thick cloak. Beneath the cloak he wore an old leather cuirass, pulled over a light hauberk, a bastard sword at his left hip. A pair of daggers hung at his right hip from the belt across his leather trousers. He laid a pair of copper pieces on the bar. "Ale," he said to the innkeeper, voice full of gravel. The innkeeper, a round, red-haired man named Brunar, nodded. He poured the ale, slid the tankard across the bar, and collected the coins. The Wilder Knight took a long, deep drink, then tossed 4 more coppers onto the bar. Brunar eyed them. "You wantin' food, then?" "Looking for someone." "Who's that?" "Varg Valgrim." Brunar swallowed. He pointed quickly across the room to a man sitting alone at a corner table, then swiped the coins from the bar and wobbled into the kitchen. The man Brunar had pointed to was bald, his face wedge-shaped, nose sharp and crooked. He wore a loose tunic and a sealskin coat. He motioned the Wilder Knight over. When the Wilder Knight had taken his seat and pulled back his hood, the bald man cleared his throat. "Varg Valgrim. Who are you?" "Gedrick." "I've heard that accent before. Where are you from?" "Urinor." "Ah, you hear about the bounty?" Gedrick nodded. Varg sighed. "If you value your life, turn around." "Bit overdramatic." "You're not the first bounty hunter the shipping guilds hired for this," Varg said. "Not even the first from Urinor. Won't be the last, neither. They've practically been feeding men like you to whatever's been haunting Oakenhall these past few months. Damn thing can't be killed. I've heard the rumors. Not rumors, truth. It can't be killed. There's nothing in this world that can't be killed. Tell that to those who have died trying to kill it. The guild's not willing to give up their best shipwrights, not yet." "The guild's in denial," Varg said through clenched teeth. "I've told them, but they won't listen. They're too greedy to listen. Ears stuffed full of gold. It's bad form to speak ill of your employer. It's bad form for my employer to knowingly send men to their deaths, even if those folks are just bounty hunters. I don't want no more blood on my hands. I'm done. I'm telling everyone the guild sends this way the truth, so I'll tell you again, turn around." "The guild knows." "Knows what?" "They know what you've been up to, and they're not happy." Gedrick brought a dagger up from under the table. "They've offered me extra for your head." Varg's eyes widened, his lips quivering as the blood drained from his face. Gedrick brought the knife down. Naked steel lodged into the table between Varg's fingers. He stared in silence, fingers trembling. "Listen, Gedrick. Tell me how to get to Oakenhall, then disappear. When I go back to collect, I'll tell them I'll never find you. Heard you've been eaten by a troll or something. Consider it a reward for having a conscience." Varg looked up. "If," he said. "What?" Gedrick asked. "If you make it back." The Wilder Knight grunted.
Am I doing my story now? Heads are paid for in coin, and while I can scavenge many things from the land, I'm craving a decent ale. Like all demons, the drowner was once human, before its soul was destroyed and replaced with something ungodly. I wiped some blood off the severed head to admire the fish scales covering its flattened features. Even in death they shimmer with dancing colours. The skin almost looks alive. I turn it round and lay my hand on its gills. Its large, unblinking eyes are dark pools, and its mouth is filled with needle-like teeth. I sigh. Sometimes these hunts are just too easy. I headbutt the ground as my legs are pulled from underneath me. Something is dragging me into the lake. Slipping along the shore, I dig one hand into the sandy ground and, foolishly, reach for the rolling head I dropped with the other. The sand grit slips under my fingers, and I take a huge breath as the cold water hits my breasts. A beat later, I'm below the water. Bubbles spill from my lips in the struggle. Nothing I do, not the flailing, kicking, or even the dagger jabs to the scaly hands around my ankles, stop the monster from dragging me to drowning depths. I take one last glance at the shrinking moon. Damn it, the head, my prize, bobs on the surface above, lazily sailing further into the lake. It fades from sight and I turn away. The head is worth a few coins, but the prize in this fight is my life. Chanting is out of the question, and there's nothing I can easily carve runes into, so there's only one magic that's mine to wield without the need to conjure. Blood gifted to my family every generation or so, I call to the fire within, and the warmth of budding flames builds through my body. We reach the bottom of the lake, and the drowner ties my foot to a weed. The demon means to watch me drown. It floats in front of me, smiling garishly with pointed teeth. I smile right back, grab its arm, and pull it to me. Closing my hands around its throat, I channel all the heat into them, gazing into the monster's filmy black eyes until the tender fish skin sizzles. Flames will not bloom underwater, but I can still draw out blistering heat. All life leaves the demon. I release the body to focus on the weed. I need to surface, to take a breath, but the weed doesn't come untied. I bring out a dagger and saw through it. The drowner corpse has risen beyond my view, though there is a shadow on the water to aim for. I follow its path to the surface, my lungs burning, and take huge spluttering gasps, the second my lips meet air. I see now that the shadow was a small rowboat, not the body. One of the oars smacks me in the head. "Hey!" I yell, but the boatman ignores me and rows on. Weighed down by my leather armor and heavy boots, I struggle to stay afloat. "A little help!" I slowly swim towards the shore, where the man has already landed. He hauls his boat up from the water's edge. I watch him drag a drowner body from his boat, then hack off its head with an axe. "Hey, that's my kill!" The last word is gargled as I sink. It takes great energy to break the surface again, and when I do, I find the cloaked man is bundling the head into a sack. Then he picks up a second from the boat. "They're both mine!" The lake bed is finally beneath my feet. I wade through the shallows and chase after him, but he mounts a waiting horse and speeds up into the night. "Bastard!" I hiss. My pack is untouched at least. Not that a bandit would have much use for a worn change of clothes and witch's herbs. Utter bastard. And that is where I will leave that one.
Hi, sorry about that. That was really cool. I didn't mean to throw you on so quickly. My camera just stopped working, and I was like, I am just dead air. We need to put somebody on. So yeah, but no, that was really cool. So that was, and I'm gonna have to talk to Austin after we do everything to kind of sum his up. So that was a part of your story, which is the
It's right
that's the very beginning opening scene, isn't it?
She's already killed one drowner. I came in where she was killing the second.
Yeah. So that was essentially
right,
like, yeah.
right near the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, because yours has a really impactful, like, oh my gosh, start to it,
Yeah.
which I thought was really exciting. So in this little clip, we're essentially being introduced to your main character, which is Death, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Short Breedeth.
Very cool. I love it. Well, thank you for reading that.
That's okay.
Yeah, it was cool. All right, I will say thank you. We'll bring you back on and see if we can get anyone who wants to have a chit chat. And next on is going to be Mr. T.M. Brown. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, no surprise entrance on this one.
Yeah. So I think I'll take my cue from Rachel, and I'm just going to start right at the top of my story. So right into the action.
All right. Sounds perfect. I'm going to take myself off the stream, and then it's all.
All right. The sagging beam exploded into cinders in front of him, and it was all Raymond Plessner could do to leap out of the way. There had been no time to save his fellow Sentinel Aaron. The supports buckled, and the loft crashed down moments later. There was nothing left where Aaron had stood but a plume of unsettled dust and shattered crates of dried squallfish. Raymond couldn't think about it. There was no time, and he was the only member of his septum remaining. That damned sorcerer had to be nearly depleted, since her attacks had been relentless. This is why you had to kill them young. Raymond rushed toward the old hag. He had to close the distance between them as fast as possible, as sorcerers were always the most dangerous at a distance. He could make out the faint flicker of light in her bone-thin fingers, and he threw his shield in front of himself just in time to be driven back several steps by an immense force. Searing heat burned narrow bits of his exposed flesh and licked at his plate armor. Good. The shield had taken the brunt of the impact, and the blast was decidedly weaker than the last. She couldn't keep this up forever. He resumed his attack and closed the distance on the old woman. She gasped for breath, looking as if she might collapse on her own. Capturing a sorcerer as powerful as her would have been a huge boon for the Adelum Order, and had the rest of his septum still been alive, he may have even tried it. Unfortunately, they were all dead, and this abomination was far too dangerous to be left alive. He brought down his longsword with equal parts rehearsed precision and innate savagery. The blade should have struck her brittle neck, but an unseen force repelled it. He continued to press downward with all his strength, the blade holding firm nearly a foot from its target. Raymond had been ordered to secure the back door to the warehouse in case the sorcerer tried to flee. He'd waited there dutifully until the screams and sounds of combat drew him inside. He should have come quicker. Raymond had never before seen arcane power like the old woman possessed, and she'd cast over a dozen spells from multiple disciplines in what couldn't have been more than a minute. She'd wiped out his entire team of sentinels, the best in Torstrand, as if they'd been little more than conscripts. None of this should have been possible. This thing was exactly what the Order had warned him about for all these years. No wonder the Obsidian Coven had refused to provide their usual assistance. He'd deal with them later, if he survived this. The old crone looked up at Raymond, who was a good foot and a half taller than her. Her eyes were crimson red, with streaks of blood running from every facial orifice and following the wrinkled contours of her wizened face. She didn't have much left in her. He had to keep pressing. She spoke in a strained whisper. "You've been blinded, Sentinel." Blood dribbled from her mouth as she spoke. "You're a dog on a chain." Oh, that'll close it up.
Oh. Sorry, I realized my mic was off. No, that was, I really enjoyed that, especially that last line. That's a good line to end on.
Yeah, it kind of, it tees up a whole, you know, conspiracy. So
yeah, exactly. No, that's perfect. Where did you get the inspiration to write something like this?
So, you know, it's something probably in between, you know, Game of Thrones and a bunch of different Dungeons and Dragons campaigns,
Yeah.
kind of, you know, fused together. Yeah, this one definitely involves a little bit of a conspiracy and a little bit more of an urban setting than I normally write in. So this one's a little different than some of the other stuff I've written.
Yeah. No, it's really exciting. I'm excited to see, like, I can't wait for people to read these stories because I think that all of them are excellently done. The worlds that you guys created are just, so that's one thing that I miss in horror a little bit, or I crave in horror, is like that alternate world that isn't about where we live. So it's nice to be able to see what you guys all kind of can come up with. So I really like it. Okay, so we're going to say goodbye for right now, and then we'll take some questions after. Yeah. And Mr. David Green, are you ready? There we go. So we're going to start with your story. It was Master and Apprentice, right?
That's the one. Yeah.
All right.
That's it.
Do you want to give us a little bit of, are you ready to read?
I am. I'm ready to read. I'm ready to go.
Okay. I'm going to and it's all to you.
Thank you. So I'm going to start this one. It's a bit midway through the first chapter. Takar Bane wove spirit and pushed the doors open, striding through them. Adepts could see when another called upon the elements, but holding spirit masked it. Bane drew as much of the 5 elements as he could call upon, safe in the knowledge the others would be unaware. Not a single spirit user among them, he thought to himself, keeping the sneer from his face. The Redden in the chamber had been talking amongst themselves, but a hush descended as Bane marched to the dais in the centre of the circular room. The council, comprising of an even split of 24 men and women, wore multiple-coloured robes as representation of their elements. Average Radan could wear garments in the colour which signified the strand of magic they associated with most closely. Bane wore black, and had done since the sickness claimed his family. Takar Bane seeks approval to address the council of the Radan, he called, weaving in a sliver of spirit to raise his voice. The others had always resented him for how easy he made such a difficult task as amplification look. Takar Bane, Hessen, a woman sitting in the centre of the raised semicircular seating, spoke. There was no official council head, but if there was, it would have been her. The council recognises you and grants you freedom of speech. Use it wisely. Bane inclined his head in response, then swept his gaze across those gathered in front of him, dark eyes twinkling. He felt a rush of power. Holding all 5 elements made him feel invincible. Exceeding the limits of what he could draw was dangerous, but Bane had always been a risk taker. He had to push past his barriers this time. Gently does it, though, he told himself. Fellow Radan, he said, focusing on Hessen, her watery blue eyes seeming to shine brighter from the amounts of water element he held. I come to you to seek your help, possibly the most important undertaking since this building and our order came into being. So lucky you came to us, Hessen replied, a mocking smile on her lips. Some council members laughed, others appeared bored. Enlighten us, please. Fools, Bane thought, the fire at his command making his blood run hotter than normal. He tried to force the reckless emotion away. His ability to focus was of paramount importance. I have discovered why our command of the element diminishes, he paused, expecting a reaction from the council. There wasn't one. Bane seethed at their lazy ignorance. I have travelled further than most, seeking answers about the civilization that came before. Perhaps the dead could tell stories on why we fail. I found those reasons. Where? Hessen asked, leaning forward slightly in her chair. We know of every relic within 500 miles of San Francisco. Far to the north, where ice smothers our life into a slow death, yet does not destroy, it preserves. Bane held up a single finger, the black flame of spirit hovering above it. We know our ancestors did not control the elements as we do, because magic is not of this reality. The element we call spirit exists as another realm, the domain of death, our afterlife, the same place we pull our magic from. When the sky spat flames, scorching the earth and destroying the civilization before us, so much death weakened the walls between our dimensions. Now that seal is closing again, and soon our magic will disappear forever. Silence followed Bane's proclamation. Hessen's mouth opened and closed mutely, like a marooned fish gasping for air. Ghoul shit, a man cried, breaking the uneasy stillness. You've finally snapped, Hessen muttered. Bane looked into her eyes to see the truth there, and the possibility he was correct terrified her. Think, Bane replied, pouring passion in his voice. One last attempt to change his plans to something less absolute. We've all seen the records left from our ancestors. They proved their gods false, the afterlife revealed to be a myth, yet we know it exists now. Who among you hasn't seen a spectre? Suppressing the memory of his wife and children, Bane continued. Who hasn't felt the extra strength required to call upon an element, even for such a simple task as lighting a candle? How many new apprentices did we enroll this year? A quarter of the previous intake. Our magic is failing, but, my friends, there is a way to stop that. How? A shout came from the council member, a woman with a wild look in her eyes. Takar Bane paused, staring at his feet. Here it is, he thought. One last roll of the dice. The barrier between the spirit realm and ours is strengthening, he said, looking up and staring into Hessen's eyes. I propose we destroy it. You're a lunatic, Hessen whispered. A fucking madman. Your grief has unhinged you, but even if you're correct, that would mean the living among the dead. Yes, Bane answered softly. We spend our lives fearing death, but those such as we should not dread the end. We should embrace it. Only then can we master it. Enough, Hessen snapped. This is preposterous. We've listened to you long. Bane stopped listening, instead thinking of his apprentice. If she's used wind, she would arrive in our town at any moment, he thought. And then? I demand a vote, Bane cut in, his amplified voice drowning Hessen's, as is my right. Fine, Hessen spluttered, gathering herself. Takar Bane wishes the Council of the Redan to vote. She shook her head. On the following motion, to destroy the barrier between our world and the afterlife, if such a feat is possible. As Bane spoke inwardly to his apprentice, the vote had reached its conclusion. All had cast against his plan. Just as I expected, Bane thought. I must continue alone. To answer your question, Bane said, holding 5 fingers out in front of him, collapsing the barrier between our world realms is possible. All it requires is the use of all 5 elements. One by one, different coloured flames appeared above Bane's fingertips. Red for fire, green for water, blue for wind, brown for earth, and finally, black for spirit. And the help of 24 adepts, willingly or not. Bane brought his hand down to the ground, weaving together the full power of the elements he'd gathered into his fist. A multicoloured conflagration exploded as he slammed into the marble floor, the spectrum rushing outwards and washing over the council. Silence. Nothing seemed to have happened. Bane straightened as the other Redan patted themselves down in relief, expecting the worst but finding nothing untoward had happened. Hessen laughed. You've done it this time, Bane. Using magic against the council, we'll have you quartered for this. It'll be my pleasure. They'll do it in front. She coughed suddenly, water spilling from her mouth. She raised her hand to her jaw, but the fingers passed straight through the flesh and out the other side, her lower face disintegrating into red slime. Her skin seemed to turn pinker, steam oozing from her ears and nostrils. Her eyeballs popped, viscera sliding down her face. Hessen and the other council members were being cooked from the inside. Bane's control of the elements had turned their blood to fire and set the water inside them to boil, steaming them alive. His power melted their flesh and weakened their bones. Those still with tongues screamed as they liquefied on the spot. That wasn't all Bane weaved. Earth and wind had created a barrier outside the citadel, one that only he and those he allowed could cross. Then there was spirit, the element cast to control what came after. As the council perished, their souls became trapped while they attempted to cross into the afterlife. Bane saw them forming, green-hued spectres with faces locked in the anguish of their deaths, longing for the peace death was so cruelly denying them. 24 adept souls, Bane said, pulling in almost more spirit than he could handle. Enough for what I need. He sucked on spirit, not just on the element that came from that foreign place, but from the spectres hovering in front of him. Just as he felt he could hold on for no longer, Bane unleashed his power. The spectres screamed as one, drained into nothing and cast into oblivion. A black dome cascaded outwards, encasing the citadel and all those who remained inside. And that's the end of the first chapter.
Dun, dun, dun. That's a pretty intense first chapter.
Yeah. Yeah.
You turned. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was just enough gruesome for me.
Yeah, I think like I was scarred by Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where the guy's face
melted.
Yeah, so I kind of do write about that quite a bit, but it's something I probably have to work through with a therapist at some point in my life.
Probably, yeah, or just keep writing it.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I watched Dolls when I was like 5 years old, and that's never made me terrified, wake up shaking, and
it's
watching all these dolls around my house. Actually, I used to move them around to look like they were chasing my sister in her sleep, and he's terrified of dolls now.
Oh, cool. My brother used to do that to me as well. Thanks.
It honestly, it warms my heart to know that she's still terrified of dolls. He used to do a lot of crappy stuff to me too, so it's not like I was just the worst, but very intense. I've got some, let's bring everybody back and we can chit chat a little bit. We're bringing Austin, TM, Mr. Brown, Rachel, you're coming on too. There we go, we're all back. So yeah, very exciting. Great. Sorry, Austin, I didn't mean to. I was like, goodbye.
No, I was like, should I keep reading or?
Yeah, I apologize. It's one of the beautiful things about going live is I don't have a chance to edit it yet.
And maybe if I stood
rough draft.
Yeah, maybe if I stood still enough, people would think that the thing froze. So
No, too funny. But where did you get, because I didn't get to ask you your story, where did you kind of get like your inspiration from, like what got you to write this particular story?
So I'd been working on like a fantasy world for like novels and stories for probably about 4 years or so, and just kind of got stuck in the world building phase, and nothing ever really came of it. And I had this idea one day after reading. I came across a poem by G.K. Chesterton called "The Wild Night," and I was like, "Oh, that's a cool thing." And I was like, "Oh, what if I changed it to like Wilder Night?" And then I was like, "Well, what is a Wilder Night?" And it just kind of all came from there. And I kind of took some of the world building I'd been doing on this other project and repackaged it into something that would fit into the Wilder Night story. And there's some Beowulf DNA in the story as well. So yeah, that's just a bunch of different places.
Which is always good DNA to have.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to pick one, Beowulf's pretty awesome.
Just go back to the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. That gives, if anybody who is watching, I know there's a couple of people watching, if you do have any questions, put them down below. We've got a couple of people that have said hi. So hello. And hello again. And then Elaine said she loved this. So awesome. Hi. But yeah, if you have any questions, put them down below. But this is one question I always like to ask authors is essentially like, where are you getting your ideas from? Is this something that comes from real life? Is it dreams? So maybe for these, yeah. So let's start with there. Anyone who wants to kind of, where do you get your writing inspiration? Let's go with TM Brown.
Yeah, I guess I'll kick off. I've always been just kind of lost in my own head, so this is it's just kind of putting things that I already like would think about, like on a commute or something, onto paper for me. So it's come really naturally. And actually, so I started narrating several like Dungeons and Dragons campaigns that I was doing, and I'm like, I'm putting a ton of work into this and it's going, nowhere, right? Like it has an audience of 5 people, like necessarily. So, so it was a really shockingly easy transition for me at least, but very much like Austin was saying, I could read entire books of world building. I barely need the plot. The plot is just, that's for everyone else.
That's for everyone else.
That's me.
She'll stay really still. She won't know we're here.
Yeah, I can see you. Sorry, I've got 2 computers set up, and one of them just kind of clicked off. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm. I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. Where else are we getting your inspirations from, Rachel? Do you get them from like real life, or are you getting them from movies? And
probably more real life than movies, but just the tiniest idea would be from real life, and then it goes absolutely bonkers, and I'm not sure where it comes from. I got an idea for a story when I could get a screw out of a wall the one day, and that turned into a whole 10,000 word story that had nothing to do with screws, but that was just the inciting incident.
Well, that's the best part of being able to be inspired from just everyday things, is it just, you only just need that little bit of truth in order to kind of create a world from it. So I think that's really cool. So you had an inspiration from a screw in a wall.
Yeah.
Did it have anything to do with getting stuff out of a wall?
No, it was what would happen if you needed to build a barricade really quickly and you couldn't get the screw out to move a door. And
oh, I like that.
Yeah, so it was people rushing to try and barricade themselves in from monsters and just cannot get this thing to come out.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that idea. That, yeah, was the most bizarre thing that's ever triggered a really awesome story. That. How about you, David? Where do you find most of your inspiration comes from?
Well, in terms of like fantasy in particular, like I'm a huge fantasy reader. That's like my go-to genre to read, and has been since I was very, very small. But like I kind of do have like, so a lot of it is I'll read something and think, wouldn't it be cool if this had happened, or wouldn't it be cool if they went in this kind of direction? And I'd have like a little idea about something that'll just live in my brain for 20 odd years, and then when I decided to start writing, I was like, oh, that might be a good idea. But other than that as well, like, I mean, I do kind of like to explore extremes. So like life and death, good and evil, and the bit that's in between. And I think that fantasy is really good to do that, because you can take themes that you want to kind of explore and write about and just drop them into a world that you've created. And it's not like, you're not kind of saying something about a certain type of people or something like that they're just people that you have created, and you can just do what you want to do with them, and go in any direction that you want. So that's fun.
Yeah, being able to play God is a lot of fun.
Yes.
Be like, I'm going to kill you.
I'm going to wipe out this entire civilization just because I can.
With like a pen, a stroke of a pen.
Yeah,
gone.
that's right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Austin, did we talk about where your inspiration comes from? We kind of did, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I thought so. I have baby brain. Let's just.
I also, for at least for my story, I wanted to put a character that is trying to be honorable, but has made some questionable decisions, and put him in a really, really tough situation and kind of watch how he handles that. And that was kind of where the big conflict comes in my story, was how do you do the right thing in an impossible situation?
Yeah.
And it was just a way to kind of look at that, kind of like David was saying, like a thought experiment of like, I'm going to put someone in this extreme situation and kind of watch what happens.
Yeah, I enjoy that. It's stepping into it's almost like acting sometimes when you're writing, right? Like you're stepping into another character. Like you have to be able to put yourself in a situation in order to write out of it. So it's really cool how to see everyone's processes are. Now we do have some questions from some people. We got a fun one. Dave, did you grow your beard so that you could fit into the fraternity of fantasy writers?
I grew my beard before I started writing. I grew my beard because I lost my hair and just decided that I had too much face.
Yeah.
So
you need to counterbalance something, right?
Exactly.
If something gives, something has to grow.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the reason. So, and if I turn myself upside down, it looks like I've just got like a really weird hairstyle now.
Ooh.
So yeah, it's a massive chin.
Yeah, you could just put in like a little smiley face and a nose.
Yeah. So it was a happy coincidence, really, that when I started writing. But yeah. It's here to stay because
it was there. So what cover do we like the best? Ooh, Blood and Ash or Bone and Iron? Because Chris cannot make his mind up. I don't know. That's a tough one. Does anybody have a favorite, and is it the one that you're in?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm biased, so I don't know what.
I know you're like, my name's on that one. That's the one I like.
That's the one I like best.
I do love the sword on Blood and Ash. That is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. I like the sword. I like both of them equally. I think together they look really, really. I'm waiting for mine to come in, but together I'm expecting them to look pretty awesome on my bookshelf. So.
Yeah.
All right, and then we've got question from Joel. Each of these stories show a unique world. Is there anything you wanted to explore but had to cut for word count and pacing? Well, this one had a fair amount of word count allowed. But did anyone feel like they needed to cut anything or anything that this world is left to explore? Is there still areas that you can explore in this world?
For sure.
I think there's still a lot I can explore with Dith, but I still had words. I was happy with where I left it and what I put into it. But writing some of the larger books in the series, there's a few ideas that I can't run with there, but I'd quite like to give them to Dith and maybe do another story with her at some point.
That would be neat.
I think it's a good exercise to try and do like a novelette-sized fantasy story, because you've got like world building is so important with fantasy. You just don't want to have like 5,000 words of world building and then 5,000 words of story. So to get it in organically was fun. I think with the one I created there, that world, I think there is definitely stories that can be done, and probably longer stories at some point. I think it does tell its own defined story about the main characters that are in it. But yeah, there's definitely more stories to tell there, I think. Which is, maybe it's just because I liked writing it. It's like I want to write
maybe. But no, there could, I think all of these worlds, because they were so fleshed out, could have multiple stories in them, or more tales to be told with those characters. So we already know that TM Brown, this is only a part of bigger world. So did you purposely write this one smaller, or was it always going to be a smaller story?
No, so this is kind of two parts. One was written kind of specifically for the call, the length of the open call, but also it was kind of written to fill kind of a gap in a previous story that I've written. So I've gone down that rabbit hole. So my first novel, somewhere in between a long novella and a very short novel, called The Gloam. That one's set very much like in the hinterlands of this empire. So I referenced this very metropolitan type place several times, and I didn't really have an opportunity to explore it. So this was kind of an opportunity to delve into the internal politics of the Sunspring Empire, and it was a lot of fun.
Very cool. How about you, Austin?
This, I actually had an idea of wanting to do maybe like a story collection or like a novella collection, basically following the Wilder Knight Gedrick kind of just around as he wanders around the world. So I've actually...
Ooh, the Wanderer.
There you go. I've got some seeds for the second story planted, so I'll probably start drafting that sometime here soon.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know that these little calls can kind of build on, either build onto something or just create something all together. We've got another question. This one says, it's a serious question this time. Do you feel like you have to plan fully fleshed out before starting to write, or do you write and let the plot develop organically and grow? So essentially, are you a plotter or a pantser? A pantser? I can never say that word correctly. Okay. What do you guys? I know everyone is completely different when they write. Like for me, if I'm writing something, I have to have it in my head almost complete before I can even put pen to paper, just because I don't want to jinx it. How does everyone else write? Do you write first? Do you write down your first idea? How do things grow? Rachel, you go first.
I don't really plot or plan anything. I like to be as surprised and interested in the story as the reader would be. So
really,
my drafts look like a shuffled deck of cards with bits of story all over that I have to cut and paste and then write up to. It's a complicated process.
That's exciting, though. Well, that's it. Like I've seen people do stuff like that. I've seen people write the first chapter and the last chapter, and then they go in and they like shuffleboard pieces together to get it from their plot A to 69. Like they go around a whole lot of different ways. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. How do you do it, Austin?
So I feel like my normal process is I usually have like an idea, a direction for the story to move in. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I sit down and outline. I'm kind of more towards Rachel's side, where I have an idea, but I kind of want to discover it as I'm writing, and kind of let the characters lead. But sometimes I'll have very specific scenes in my head that I'm like, oh, okay, I think I want this closer to the end or closer to the beginning, and just kind of do that there. I tend to actually outline after I've done my first draft. So I'll outline what I've drafted and then kind of revise and kind of shape it from there.
Okay, well that's
like
how I like writing. I don't know how to react to this stuff. David, how do you write?
Poorly is how I write.
Yeah.
So when I first started, I would basically have it like kind of play in my head like a film, I suppose. I'd have scenes that I wanted to do. And I'd know what scenes in the order that they would go in, and I'd just write the scenes basically in that kind of way. I'd have a beginning and an end and a middle, and just find a way to get there. But working more with yourself, I've become very much a planner, which I never was before, but I actually enjoy doing it because it's great to kind of it's great to have it all laid out and just kind of have it there as a few pages of the story and say, okay, well, does this work or doesn't it work? And then kind of build it out from there. So yeah, I can see why people would do both ways. I enjoy both of them, to be honest with you. I don't think either one is better than the other.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. It's weird when when people are like, "Oh, I plan now because of you," because I don't actually like plan. I'm just like, you really should figure out how your world works and how the magic system. Meanwhile, where I'm writing, I'm like, oh, what's happening now?
Yeah.
But good to know I have.
It was great though because like loads of people, like it was like my birthday recently and Christmas, the people were just buying me notebooks because they could see notebooks that I use all the time now. So because I'm planning stuff when I wasn't planning before, so I just have notebooks everywhere with stuff
amazing
in them. Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
You need a notebook. What about you, Mr. T.M. Brown?
Yeah, so Trevor's my name, so you can.
I know, it's just because when people write, I don't know if they want people to know their actual name.
No, sorry. I should have said that. I should have said that earlier.
You should have. I keep saying TM.
I'll go by whatever. I am not particular. No,
all right, Ronald.
I think kind of, yeah. Kind of, in between, Austin and David there. I have a tendency to, I'll have a very in-depth scenes that I want to happen, and I will have a very specific idea of how a scene plays out. And, especially if it's a short story, that will generally be enough. I will just start writing to that. Yeah. And I will build literally characters, plots, civilizations around a scene that I want to happen. Oftentimes I almost always keep these scenes stay in the finished product, but I don't always end up executing them in the order in which I initially planned. So I just want certain things to happen, and then so sometimes I'll build characters or something around that, or entire plots to get to that particular thing I want. And I don't know if that's healthy or a good way to write, but that's how I've moved forward.
I feel like there's no wrong or right way as long as you're writing it out. Like if your way ends up where you don't actually get a book in the end, like me, it's probably the wrong way to do it. So as long as you're actually like producing, great. And your work speaks for yourself, and you have some great stuff coming out, and because even your story in the sky was another book we have was really well thought out and well developed, and it was just a really good story. I really love it.
I think, now that my work has gotten much busier and my production unfortunately has kind of fallen off, so I think now I write exclusively for Erie River.
Oh, really?
It seems. I've just
take it.
Yeah, that's the calls that I seem to be able to make. So, yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, it's not. Well, I guess having work is great, so that's always good. We got one more question. This one's fantasy related. On the fantasy tropes, do you feel bound to them? So when you feel like if you're going to include a dwarf, will you portray them in a certain way? So does anyone actually, because everyone does different fantasy, do you use the fantasy creatures that we would normally know, or are you creating your own fantasy creatures?
I think I used elves.
Yeah.
But mine were mean elves that have like antlers coming out of their heads and stuff. So they're like creepy elves. They're not they're not Tolkien's,
Yeah.
elves. Yeah, I based them. Funny story. I based them off of when my dad read me The Hobbit when I was a kid, and Bilbo is stuck in the like Mirkwood or whatever with those elves. I thought those elves were terrifying as a kid, and so my elves are kind of those elves, the like
your nightmare elves.
Yeah, the nightmare elves. Yeah,
I like that. I don't think anyone else had specifically. So if you are going to include all of these, I'm going to say token fantasy creatures, are you going to, when you do write them, will you make them so that they do have the same features and characteristics of ones that you would see on books, other books, or are you creating them your own characters?
I think, I mean, obviously, I didn't use any of those kind of creatures in this story, but obviously, I have something else coming out later on this year that does feature elves. And I kind of did my own thing with them in a way, like, you know, they are still like.
You can say what's coming out. I
can say, okay. So in Solitude's Shadow with Erie River Publishing, it's out in June. Does feature elves, and they are like, you know, very kind of like twisted versions of elves. So like it's like an evolution of them where they were like Tolkien's elves, I suppose, way back when. But at the point we meet them in this story, they're very, very different because of what has happened to them. And I think that's like, you know, I think that's you kind of have to. It's like tropes in any other kind of genre. I think if you take them and you kind of look at it and go, well, you know, this is a trope, but is there a way of putting a spin on this or making it feel unique? And then even still, like, if it works in the story that you're writing, I don't think it's a big deal, like, because, you know, I think you can sometimes go too far with twisting something where it's just, why not create something of your own if you're going to do it that way, I think.
Yeah. I think that's good. The one thing that I would probably say is, if you are using a common name for something, make sure that it has some, unless you're explaining it, make sure it does have some characteristics of that character. That would probably be my only thing, is you don't want to go call something a dwarf and then have it as tall as an ogre.
Dwarf giant.
Yeah, and it's like, So that's the only thing. But definitely, I think it's great to be able to use some of the names and the titles we're used to, but making them your own. But there is a fine line of making them your own and creating a completely different set of creatures and people and things like that. Okay, we've got one more question, and then we're gonna wrap up with just kind of what's happening in 2021 with you guys. And yeah, so this one is, what is your all-time favorite fantasy series? Now you're all on the spot. You have to admit you read fantasy and you're all nervous. I'm joking. We're all nervous. All right, we'll just do a round circle. So someone start and then next person go.
I recently read Trudy Cavanagh's The Magician's Guild series and really enjoyed that. I think she did Magician's Apprentice, which was a prequel much later, and that I thought was actually better than the main series, but that was one I'd read again.
Right, someone go next.
My favorite is Wheel of Time.
Yes.
Yeah, all-time favorite. I've read it about 20 times at this point. So
like all the way through?
Yeah, all the way through.
Wow.
You'll get stuck on book 7. Oh.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's book 7, all right, but they kind of just mold into one at this stage for me. So it's just like all of them is just one big long book. So yeah, I love it.
It is, yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
But that's what I love. That's what I love about fantasy series. It is just like a never-ending. It's almost like it never ends, which is fantastic. Sometimes you just don't. Like for me, at least, I'm not ready for that world to be over. Like I want to be stuck in it. So it's nice when you can go back and reread. How about you, Austin? Do you have a favorite fantasy
Yeah, I have Tolkien will always, The Hobbit, The Silmarillion will always have like a big place in my heart. The Hobbit was what made me want to be a writer. I'd say my favorite fantasy series though would be Steven Eriksson's Malazan, Book of the Fallen, which is really good stuff. Yeah.
Very cool. And Trevor.
Yeah, I'll close out. It's Tolkien for me, you know. I mean, that was you know, as a kid, you know, watching the cartoon Hobbit and then going out and reading the books. I mean, to me, I was exposed to a lot of fantasy really early, so that was a gateway for everything that followed.
Yeah, I didn't discover fantasy until I was well into my early 20s. Before that, it was a lot of horror and paranormal romance. A lot of paranormal romance.
Paranormal romance, the gateway to fantasy.
I got stuck in that for a few years, but that's a whole nother story. And one that I will write one of these days. So let's just talk. We'll wrap this up. It's great meeting all of you guys and chit-chatting. So tell me, what is happening with you in 2021? Do you have big releases coming out? Do you have small releases, books, anthologies? What's happening? Let's start. Someone pick a number. Austin, you won.
Congratulations.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I think I've got I have a couple stories out submitted to a couple places right now. So kind of just that never ending cycle of waiting to hear back and then writing and, working on what's next. I think I've got a couple stories coming out in anthologies later this year.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of mostly just writing new stuff and waiting to get responses on the other stuff.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's your writing, so that's great.
Yeah.
So that's good. All right. How about Trevor? What do you have going on this year?
Sure. Yeah, my output has kind of slowed to a trickle here, and it will probably remain that way for a while. But I have a backlog that I'm working through, so very excited for It Calls from the Sea. So shout out there.
That is coming out. I'm very excited for that one to come out.
Yes. Yeah. I really, I've got the short story, Bowie 21415, which is one of my favorite stories personally that I've written. So I'm very excited to be part of that anthology. I've got a story that was pretty close to me. One of the first ones I ever wrote recently got picked up for Cosmic Horror Monthly, called Osage Orange, and set in my beautiful home state of Missouri. It's kind of a, I don't know, Lovecraftian take on the Ozarks, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then, let's see. And then a couple other ongoing projects. So I'll have stuff continuing to come out over the summer. And then I do still have, let's see. Oh, got the Gloam.
Oh, yes.
Yes. It's my one book that I've managed to produce that's out and available. So
hey, that's amazing.
So that's it for me.
All right. What about you, Rachel?
The only thing I've definitely got coming out this year is a story called B is for Brooch in ABCs of Terror 3.
Mm-hmm.
About a cursed brooch, basically.
Yeah.
Got quite a few things that I've put in for submissions, but not heard back yet. And the Night Order series, which is the books I'm working on that are around Dith's world, her story. There's I've written 2 of them, and there's another 3 to go. So I'm just going to be working on getting those together and hopefully publishing something next year.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. I'm excited to see what this world kind of evolves into, because it's a good story, and it's really interesting characters. So it's pretty cool. Now, David, what do you have coming 2021?
Well, I have something in Calls from the Sea, which I'm very excited about. Like like Trevor, it's actually one of my favourite stories of my own that I've written as well. So I'm looking forward to that one. And after that, or maybe before that, I'm not sure, is In Solitude's Shadow with River, which I'm really excited about. And I can't wait for people to read it. It's I've read it through again recently, and I was trying to pretend that I hadn't wrote it, and I was looking at it, and I was like, this is actually quite good. I quite like it.
A good feeling.
Yeah. So no, that's coming out. The first one is in June, and then the sequel will come out quite soon after. Is the plan?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's gonna. It's revving up to be a really big year. So we'll have even more announcements coming up for you very shortly as well. But we won't. We'll keep that on the download for now.
Yes.
But yeah, no, 2021 is going to be great. We've got for Erie River, we have Dark Magic coming out, and this is our Drabble collection. That's coming out for the 1st of May. And it looks like we're speeding along edits on that. So I should have the book ready and should be actually able to proof it before it actually goes on sale, which is going to be amazing. And then we've got It Calls from the Sea is going to come out right after. I think it should be able to be out within the first couple of weeks of May. And then we have mid-May is going to also be The Sentinel by Drew Starling. That's our first horror novel that we're releasing by a single author. So we're really excited about that. And then we've got David Green's In Solitude's Shadow. We've got a Seeker project that we're going to be announcing next week. That's going to be coming out in installments throughout the year, accumulating into this big book, which we are pumped about, but it may or may not be about dystopian societies after something horrible happens. Who knows? Maybe it won't be about that. Maybe it'll be about tea. And then we've got Neen Cohen's book coming out in August, The Void, and then we've got Kara Delkey's book coming out in September. And that's not even the anthology calls that we have. So we've got a lot of crazy stuff going on this year. We're really excited to have that happen and have all of you guys on board. And we just hope that you will continue writing for us because we love, love, love your stories. So thank you so much for being here. And we will talk soon. So I'm about to put on a brand thing that makes a lot of noise. So get ready. All right. Well, thanks. See you guys.
See you guys.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.